Hey, Prince Magnum, it's been a long time since you've done Sober Talk. Isn't it about time you do a video? Yes, it is. It's been too long. Stick around. We're going to dive right in to Sober Talk. Hello once again, and welcome to the Prince Magnum channel where hot rodding and romance do coexist. I'm your host, Prince Magnum. Welcome to one of my, actually, if there was any series that I would love to do more often, this is the series right here, better known as Sober Talk. Now, because this is Sober Talk, the format of how I go about videos is a little bit different than what all of you are probably used to. So first things first, let's talk about what today's Sober Talk is going to be about. A lot of you out there recently have said, you talk about sobriety, would you tell us some stories? So I feel it's only fitting that the stories that I talk about today are some of my all-time favorite stories in sobriety. And I've done this before, but since that time that I did that video, a lot has happened. A lot has happened. And I guess you could say that the story, my favorite stories in order have even changed a little bit. So with that being said, let's get underway. And this is not necessarily a top 10, but it is some of my top favorite stories to talk about when it comes to sobriety. So let's start off with our first story. Our first story, if there was any story that really defines my sobriety, it would be this particular moment. I was 3 years sober at the time, and gosh, that's been so long ago. I was 3 years sober and had got asked if I would be willing to serve as the alternate GSR of my home group at that time, the New Topic group over in Park Hills, Missouri. And the way that it happened, would you be willing to take this? I said, I will do it if the group votes for me to do it. I'll be glad to take it. So the group, at the next group, Conscience, that's exactly what we did. We voted, and I won unanimously. I guess you could say. Actually, the way that voting works in AA, it's a little bit different than how it is in actual politics. Instead of saying you run for something, you stand for a position, and then when the group votes, it is not that you won, lost, or whatever. It was decided by the group that you were the best person for the job. So it's not like you win, lose, because even though the other person didn't necessarily win, you get the idea. The group felt that the other person might be a little bit better suited. And the way that you are voted into a particular position, you have to have 3/4 of the votes. And that's just how Alcoholics Anonymous works. So I got voted into the position of alternate GSR, and I went to my first area assembly. And my first area assembly was it was a defining moment for me, because at that particular point in time, I kind of felt that I was becoming a burden to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had no great stories to really tell. None of those big moments that defined me as Prince Magnum, if you will. Or at least that's the way I was feeling. Now, what everybody else might have been feeling was a different ballgame. But for me, it was, I didn't feel I had contributed anything super special and important. Even though I know that's BS now. Okay. So at that particular time, I needed, I guess you could say I was kind of working up to a relapse. So I went to area assembly and got to meet some very neat people. Got to learn an awful lot about other groups, and gave a lot of insight at the GSR meeting. So I was feeling pretty good about it. It was a pretty sweet deal. Well, a little bit later on, the area assembly decided that they were going to have what they call a share session, and 3 topics were brought up. Now, the first topic, I don't remember a whole lot about it, but the second topic was, how do you help a newcomer, whether race, religion, different ethnic background, sexual orientation, whatever the case may be, how do you help them feel comfortable in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous? And I had a friend of mine who was just kind of sitting catty corner, a very wonderful woman who's watched me all these years get sober, stay sober, and that sort of thing, Miss Alvina. Alvina, seeing me shifting around in my seat kind of, because she knew, and I knew I could talk on the subject, but I was actually afraid to go up to the microphone and talk about it. And Alvina says, Prince Magnum, why don't you go on up to the mic? And I'm like, no, I just want to listen. And she kind of, Prince Magnum, go up to that microphone. I said, no, I'm good here. I just want to listen. And she says, would you get your ass up to that microphone? And I'm like, all right. I said, you really want me to go? And she said, yes, you go now. So I went up there to the microphone, and I leaned over, and of course I said, hello, my name is, and I gave my real name. And of course everyone says, and I'm an alcoholic, and everyone goes, hi, hi, my real name. And I said, I'm the alternate GSR, new topic group, Alcoholics Anonymous, Park Hills, Missouri. And at that moment, they were actually timing people, and they started the clock, if you will. And that clock, you had 2 minutes to talk. After that, they asked you to, we would love to hear more, but there's more people that want to talk. So they kind of stop you, kind of ring a bell, and politely ask you to let someone else have a turn. I said, when I got sober, I came in, and this is almost verbatim what I said, because this was so important, I remember it. I said, when I got sober, I got, I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, kind of a different sort. I came in wearing all black clothes, black nail polish, purple lipstick, and long hair. Well, my hair was down, and I was standing there wearing a black suit and tie. And immediately, I looked down at my suit and looked back up and went, oh, crap, some things haven't changed. And everybody in the room started busting up laughing. And I said, all right, let's get real, guys. This is not something that you see typically where I live in Alcoholics Anonymous. This is actually something you don't see at all for the most part. So I came in very strange to a lot of people. And, knowing this, coming in like this, I didn't love myself very much, but the groups did not care. All they cared about is, do I have a problem with alcohol? I said, as a matter of fact, I had an old timer once say to me, Prince Magnum, it doesn't matter if you were puking in the gutter or puking on the Persian. If you're puking as a result of your alcoholism, you're in the right place. I had another old timer tell me, it doesn't matter if you're from jail or Yale. If you have a problem with alcohol, you're in the right place. I said, it's been 3 years since my last drink. But even to this day, when I go into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and I see a newcomer, immediately my heart goes out to them. I said, I need the newcomers. I need the newcomers because those are the people that are going to remind me of what it was like to be out there still drinking. So we need the newcomers because even after 3 years, I'm still trying to save my own bacon. And the fact is, who's going to take over for us when we're gone and keep Alcoholics Anonymous alive and well? So if there's any of our loved ones who need it, then it'll still be there for them. So when I see a newcomer, I don't care if, what their race, religion, sexual orientation, ethnic background, or any of those things. I don't care about any of those things. All I care about is do they have a problem with alcohol? Because if they have a problem with alcohol, they're in the right place. So, with that being said, if nobody has told any of you that they love you, Prince Magnum does. God bless you and have a happy 24. Immediately, the entire room erupted in applause. People were jumping to their feet. I wouldn't say it was a full-on standing ovation, but it was very close to one. And as a matter of fact, in the middle of me talking, the timekeeper started to ring the bell to ask me to step away from the microphone. And at that time, the area secretary reaches over and puts her hand kind of on top of hers and shakes her head, no, let him go. You know, just kind of let him go. So it was really an awesome moment for me. And basically, that particular moment saved me from relapse. And if it hadn't been for good old Alvina, I probably would have relapsed. So that was pretty big. So, there's one of the, I guess you could say, most important stories, in my sobriety, because at that particular time I was working up to a relapse. So let's cut away and I'll tell you another story. Now that we have that story out of the way, let me tell you about another one of my favorite stories. Bear in mind, a lot of these stories are going to be kind of where I'm center stage, doing something. And the reason why that will typically be is because I like to be center stage. It's what I'm comfortable with. So that's going to be a commonplace theme with me. But I digress. Another favorite story of mine was about the time I was making 7 years. I had made 7 years sober. At that time, Princess Faye and I deep in our relationship, and her mother comes for about a week to visit with us. And of course, yeah, that's about right. Yeah, she comes to visit with us for about a week, and during that time frame, Princess Faye's mom gets to see me, go into AA meetings, and she's, just very supportive and that sort of thing. We go to this one, and I get asked to tell my sober story. And basically, some areas, it's tradition that when you go in, they want the birthday person in AA, what you might call a sobriety anniversary. We call this, a sobriety birthday. That's what it is to us. Kind of that whole rebirth into life and, getting back to the flow of life. And it's kind of a rebirth. It's kind of, if you will. So in a nutshell, Princess Faye's mom comes comes in, and, she goes with me to this one meeting. They asked me to speak, and I was more than happy to speak for them. So we sit down and I start telling my story. And, at a particular point, Princess Faye's mom, when I was telling the story about my dear friend Tanya and how she helped me and things like that, I started, telling that. And of course, it's still a very difficult subject, even after all these years. So I broke down and started crying. Well, I happened to look over, and Princess Faye's mom was crying with me. And that was really important to me. The fact that, who became my mother-in-law, was crying during some of the hard parts to talk about in my story. She was emotional with me. That was very important to me. And, again, I'm going to say, Mom, thank you so much, for crying with me. That was very important to me. And I wouldn't trade that moment for the world. So there's that story. So let's cut away and tell another story. Another particular story that really stands out in my mind, I was 6 months sober, coming up on 6 months sober, and my girlfriend at that time, this was many years before Princess Faye, my girlfriend at that time, she had planned out a surprise birthday party, and the next day we were all going to Six Flags and celebrating the fact that I was turning 27. Now, this has been a minute, here I am 40 years old, but I was turning 27, very excited about that. And along with that, my ex, planning out this party and everything, basically she had to borrow my car So I had to, thankfully I was close at work, and I used, I had a moped. So I took the moped to work, came home after work, and pretty much everybody was there. A guy I was sponsoring, and his girlfriend, and my best friend, Mercenary, and at that time his girlfriend, and who would have been his stepdaughter if they'd have worked out. And of course, my girlfriend at that time, well, my fiance. And, I come in and everyone's there, and we just had a ball. It was a great time. Everybody, we sat up and we ate birthday cake, and we, we just had a great time. Later on that night, while everybody was, later on after things started settling down, we played some video games at that time, PlayStation 2. Forgot what games we played, but we had a great time playing those. And then of course, I fired up the CD player and started singing. I sang a lot of stuff by Typo Negative at that time, and we just had a great time. Later on, my ex and I, we went into the bedroom, and I'll leave that to your imagination. The next day we go to, we go all the way to Six Flags, and we had a blast. Had a great time. Nothing like that experience. But the best part of the story was, here I am, the day of, I'm celebrating 6 months of sobriety, and I still got the pictures and everything. After that whole experience, I go home, and it's like, man, what a day. And later on, the next day, I got to go to the Noon Topic group, my old home group, and got to announce 6 months of sobriety. Well, Sober Man was there with his wife. So imagine this for a split second. This is the main part of the story that was probably the most exciting. I'm sitting in my home group, and on one side of me is Sober Man and his wife, Mrs. Sober Man. On the other side of me is my then girlfriend, and next to her is a guy I'm sponsoring, and sitting next to him is his girlfriend. So that was like big, that was like a big moment. So, here we are, there's literally 3 generations of sponsorship sitting right there at the end of the table. And those generations of sponsorship, all of them, all of us were with our other half. So that was big for me. And so when I announced 6 months of sobriety, Sober Man stands up. He's got my 6-month coin. And he says, Prince Magnum has worked his steps. He's sponsoring somebody. He's giving back to the program that has given so much to him. And I want all of you to know that he has been a bright spot in my life. We've gone through so much together. And, Prince Magnum, I'm very proud of you. And he's like, you're going to have to get up. By this time, I'm already standing up, And he says, so with great excitement, I'd like to give you this. And he gives me my 6-month coin. And we give each other this big hug. We're both crying, just a great deal. Sober Man and I are crying our eyes out. And of course, the whole room starts applauding, and this is something that kind of goes on to this day. That's something very important. And of course, when it went around the room, a lot of people talked about how we were an inspiration to them. And at that time, I didn't even know that Sober Man and I were inspiring other people to stay sober and to work the program and things like that. So that was huge for me. And, I wouldn't trade that moment for the world. For the record, a couple months later, I was talking to Sober Man on the phone, and I said, it feels like the party hasn't stopped. And he says, Prince Magnum, does it have to? He says, does it have to stop? He said, ride that wave. He said, we're always so used to when the other shoe drops. It doesn't have to. Ride that wave as long as you want. So, I did for a long time, and of course, the relationship with with my ex, it went sour. And you know, for the record, today, her and I actually we get along now. You know, Princess Faye's not super fond of her, but is willing to get along with her because that ex and I did have a child together, my middle son. You know, but without a question, you know that's one of those defining moments in my sobriety that I look back to, because I believe that if you're not having fun in sobriety, you're not going to stay sober. So that was huge for me.
Man. Wow, man, freaked out.